welcome everybody. I'm Margie Fine. I'm the co-leader of this wonderful initiative of Robert Wood Johnson. We're doing fundraising for health justice. I want to introduce Amber Pinto, who I'm also working with here on this, who's also leading this project, and Avery, who's our Zoom tech. Avery, come out for a moment and say hi, even though she's behind everything. And I'm going to introduce Rhea in just a second, who's our guest presenter today. I wanted to say that we've kind of done this initiative. Whoa, I turned my picture off. As kind of an accordion. You can come onto a program like this for an hour and a half. You can come onto a series. You can do a number of things to help your fundraising get stronger and better. Learn from each other and learn from the presenter. I'm so glad you're here today. It's my honor to introduce Rhea Wong. I have her book. I like her that much. I bought it my very self. I highly recommend you do this too. She's a fellow sister Brooklynite, but that's not the only reason why I like her. She's also a fundraising guru. She helps people, no matter what level you are at fundraising, to be at your highest level and to know here's all the options you have to choose from, all the ways you can organize things. And even if you're only a one-person shop, I want you to know them, because you might use them in the future. You might use them now. So I don't want to give away more of what she's saying, but believe me, there are things in here for you to see and to know. And with that, I'm looking forward to Rhea, to your next comment. So take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Margie, my fellow glasses sister. And thank you to all of you for having me. I hope that this will be fun for you. I'm going to try to make it fun for you. The one thing I would ask is, if you're able to, I would love if you could turn your cameras on, because this is just my own thing. I dabble in stand-up comedy, and I tried to do some stand-up comedy, like stand-up mics during the pandemic, and it was just the most horrible thing ever. Like, stand-up by itself is terrifying, but even more so when all you see are blank screens. So thank you. Hi, Helena.
I'm gonna check out the hair color. Excellent.
And we see the hair color. I love it. Thank you. All right, let me share my screen. Hold 1 second, please. Also, please use the chat, and we're a small enough group, so I think it will be super conversational. But if you have questions, throw it in the chat. Amber will help me regulate the chat, and she'll let me know if questions are coming up. So let's get this party started. We're talking about your year-end campaign today. It's going to be very exciting. First, to give you a little bit of context, any Game of Thrones Dragons fans out here? We have to have a little sidebar conversation about House of Dragons. I have feelings. Anyway, point is,
beautiful.
I am first in my name. My life ambition is to be the Asian Oprah. I was, like you, like many of you on the call, an executive director for 12 and a half years in New York City, which, as you know, just feels like dog years. So it's like 100 years. And in the next iteration of my career, I moved from being an ED to teaching people how to fundraise, because it took me 12 and a half years to learn how to fundraise. And I was like, why did it take me so long? Why don't I just teach people how to do it so that they don't need to take over a decade to figure it out? So that's what I do. I'm a podcaster. I have a podcast called Nonprofit Lowdown. I have a book, as you saw from Margie, and I'm a general nonprofit enthusiast. So you'll see me around the way. Okay, so in today's session, what we will cover is each step of the process in planning an end of year campaign. We'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into each step, and then I actually created a beautiful template for you to take away, for you to use as you plan out your campaign. Fair warning, this is gonna feel super intense. I created this thing, it's really comprehensive, so don't freak out. What I've done is I've thrown everything in the kitchen sink at it so that you just have an idea of, like, this is what a full board campaign looks like. I know a lot of you are in small shops, so this is gonna feel like I'm not gonna be able to do this all. So just take what is useful to you and leave the rest. The big picture point I just want to make here is do something. It's better to do something than nothing. And it's better to be imperfect than to not think about doing anything, right? You're leaving money on the table if you do nothing. So just do something and like be okay with it being imperfect. So I'm going to do a series of polls here. So first poll, what's the status of your year-end appeal currently? Let's see what our results are. In process, not started. What year-end appeal? Very good. Okay, so we're a little bit all over the map here. But okay, I've got something for everybody. So let's get this party started. Let's talk about a couple things. 30% of annual giving occurs in December. Now, of course, as a sector, we've done a very bad job of training people to expect year-end appeals and to wait till the end of the year. So you could be doing fundraising throughout the year, and that's actually why I focus my practice on major gift fundraising, because I think that can happen throughout the year. But interestingly, statistically, that 10% of annual giving occurs in the last 3 days of the year. What does that mean then? It means that we should always be doing follow-up once we send the appeal, because people are trying to get their end of year tax deductions in. And with the holidays, they may not be thinking about it till the very last. Plus, we know that people just are last minute. Like, that's just the nature of human beings, right? So point I want to make here is, when you think about your strategy, whatever it is, do not sleep in the last 3 days of the year. That's when you need to be sending out emails, making phone calls, sending out letters, whatever, to remind people. So what does it look like? There are a couple steps of the process. Number one, you want to analyze your giving from the year before and segment your list. We'll talk about what that looks like. You want to set the goals for this campaign. You want to think about your themes and possible stories for your content. You want to think about what are the communications that I'm sending out, through which platforms and when. I want to warm it up a little bit before I ask, right? Because a cold ask is probably not going to be the best as far as ROI. And then I want to send the ask. Then I want to steward. I want to make sure that I say thank you appropriately so that we continue the relationship and hopefully they give again next year. All right. So this is, in an ideal world, what a project plan might look like. So you want to do all of the back office analysis, goal setting, themes, etc. in August to September. You might want to start your warm-up series in September to October and ask sort of November, December. Now, let me say a word about November and December. So sometimes people send asks prior to November. I personally kind of ignore everything before November, right? It's just too early for me. So I think the sweet spot is anytime between, say November through mid-December, but I would also avoid Thanksgiving. So, and then once the ask is out, once someone donates, you'll be doing stewardship, and we'll talk in more depth about what stewardship looks like. Now, let's say you're just starting right now. I know some of you answered, what end of your campaign? So here's a here's a truncated schedule of what you could do. So you could do a quick and dirty analysis, goal setting, theme, comms plan right now. It'll take you like 2 hours to do. Then you do a warm-up series starting early November. Then you can send the ask out early December, and you do follow-up on stewardship December and January. So that could be like a smaller, truncated, scaled down version of what a full-scale campaign could look like. This is what we call a funnel. So often we have this idea, and I know a lot of you are seasoned fundraisers, so I'm sorry if this is a repeat, but just because someone becomes aware of who you are doesn't mean that they will commit to donating to your organization. So when I say the warm-up series, what I'm saying is that we need to create an experience through the funnel that gets them from the I've never heard of you before down to I'm committed to donating. Now, this can happen very quickly depending on the strength of the relationship. So for example, like if it's a friend of a board member's, maybe I can get through this interest engagement phase really quickly to get to the donation, right? But I can't assume that just because you hear me means that I'm going to commit without some kind of warm-up series or engagement process. Does that make sense? And the engagement process can be maybe an email or two, or a social media touch point, or a letter. But to go from here to there cold is the same thing as going on a first date and asking for you to marry me. It's very sudden. When we think about our communications, whether it's an ask or our newsletter or social media or whatever, There are three kinds of trusts that we want to think about. And remember, trust equals donation. So what are the three kinds of trust? First is competency trust. Are you good at the thing that you say that you're good at, right? Second is community trust. Does somebody that I trust you? And the third is caring trust. Do you care about me as a person? Do you care about me as a donor? The more you can increase these three kinds of trusts, the more likely you are to get a donation. Does that make sense so far? So far, so good. Now, the reason why people like board members are really important is that it shortcuts the community trust. Like, how many of you all have ever just given to an organization because a friend of yours asked you to? Right? I didn't vet anything. I didn't research. I was like, oh, someone I love wants me to give to that. I will give to that. That is often the case. And so what I want you to think about is who is out there in the world, whether it's board members or volunteers or friends of, who are referring people your way. They're essentially lending their trust and credibility to you as an organization. Does that make sense? So far, so good? Okay. But just write this down. Trust equals donations. That's like the big picture thing. Okay, let's talk about analysis and segmentation. All right, take a deep breath. I know this might be a level of sophistication that is going to make you freak out. Do not freak out. Okay, let's do a poll. So Avery, the poll is, how many individual donors do you have? And if you don't know exactly, just give me a ballpark. And I hope you all have an idea of the ballpark. Okay, 200 to 500. All right, so that is a very manageable number. That's very good. All right, great. So, because math. So the more people that you have engaged, the more donors you have, the more people on your newsletter list, the more people who are volunteering for you, the bigger your pool of potential donors. So I like to say fundraising is just a math problem. Asks minus no's equals yeses. So when you're in sales, for example, the reason why they're obsessed with numbers is simply a math problem. The more deal flow they get going, the more people they can ask, the more people will say yes. Now, I will say that it's not all about numbers, right? Like, bigger is not necessarily better. Quality does matter. However, when we think about deal flow, it matters because, math. So a couple of questions that I want you to consider as you're thinking about your analysis, which is your, what we call Libunts, gave last year, but not yet this year. Sybunts, they gave some year, but not yet this year. Your prospects, and what do I mean by prospects? I mean people who are in your universe, but haven't yet donated. So those look like newsletter subscribers, volunteers, social media followers, friends of the organization, friends of board members, etc. How much did you raise last year and from how many donors? So what was your average size gift? And then, a lot of you have very manageable lists. I would say it does not hurt to go down the list and figure out, like, who are these people and who are they connected to? Because again, remember, trust equals donation. So the more you can know your donor and get that caring trust going of, like, Kalina, I now know that you like to dye your hair, right? How powerful would it be if I sent you a letter and say, like, hey, Kalina, what color is your hair today? You would feel no, right? Personalization equals trust. We all just want to be known and seen as people. So here are some relevant segments that you might try to think about. Major gift donors. So when you look at your full individual donor base, those who are generally in the top 10% are what I would consider to be major donors. And those are the people you should be really paying attention to. It's very 80-20, right? 20% of your donors will fund 80% of your work. So you really want to be paying attention to those top 10, top 20%. Then I want you to look at recurring annual donors. Like Bob Smith gives us $100 every year, but he's been doing that for the last 5 years. Well, that might be an opportunity to upgrade Bob Smith here. Lapsed donors, people who have given some year but haven't given this year, there's an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, we miss you, we want you back. And then new donor prospects. Now, when we look at this list from top to bottom, I put it in the level of likelihood that you're going to get a gift. So obviously your major donors are like your tried and true, they're your family, they're your network, they're the people who are going to come through for you. Then it goes down into successive levels of likelihood. So with new donor prospects, I think aiming for, just to be conservative, a 10% conversion rate. But if you've done a good job of warming up the audience, you could even consider as high as a 30% conversion rate. But for projection purposes, be conservative, say 10%. All right, let me pause here. Any questions so far? I feel like I'm going pretty fast and saying lots of numbers and math. Okay, I'm assuming everything is good. So then we've analyzed our group. We're like, okay, great. Here's who I got. Here are the people who are my major donors, et cetera, et cetera. What am I going to do this year? So I have to analyze what happened last year, and I'm going to do some goals for this year. Here are some things that you can consider as far as key performance indicators or just some goals. And again, keep it simple, right? Clutter obscures elegance. It could look like total revenue for the campaign. It could look like new or increased donors. It could look like number of donors retained. So here's some examples. By the end of this year, we want to raise 150K, or I want to increase donations by 5% from all existing donors. Or I want to look at my retention rate. So as a sector, we are historically very bad at retaining. I think it's less than 50%, which is terrible. So if all you did with your end of your campaign was just try to hold on to your existing donors, you would be most of the way there, right? The problem that we have as a sector is that we lose donors all of the time, and it's much more expensive to raise money from a new donor than an existing donor. Or maybe your goal might be 15% of new prospects given. And when I say prospects, that's people who are in your universe who have not yet given. So you could do any number of these things. I say keep it simple. Make 1 or 2 goals if you're just starting out. Don't kill yourself, right? But again, it's important to have some kind of goal. Okay, let me pause there. Any questions so far? Y'all with me? Is this feeling okay? Cool. Now we're going to talk about brainstorming campaign themes and stories. So the very heart and soul of an end of year campaign is story driven. And actually, I would say fundraising in general is story driven, right? Because essentially what happens is our brains, we need story to understand things, and story unlocks empathy, and empathy is where generosity lies. So don't skimp on the stories. So what do I mean by stories? Or actually, before we get to stories, let's talk about thinking about a campaign. What is the personality of your brand, right? And brand feels a little bit icky. I'm just going to say that, but brand is basically like, how do you show up in the world? How do people talk about you? What is and brand is certainly more than a logo and colors. Brand is, how do I represent myself and my values in the broader world? What words or concepts resonate with my audience? And ultimately, when you are launching a campaign, you want them to feel something. So what is the feeling that you want them to have? Is it about, oh, I want to help? Is it empathy? Is it humor? Is it generosity? Like, there is a feeling that you want people to have from an experience. And then, is there a specific project that needs to be funded? So here are some examples of some year-end campaigns. This one to the left here, I think, is Teach for America. This one is United Way, and this one is Charity Water. Now, I just want to make a note here. You might be looking at this and thinking, like, that's cute, Rhea. Like, I'm a single person shop. I cannot do all of this. Kalina, are you with it? I feel like Kalina just saw them. She's like, yes, I was thinking that. There are ways to do this. So technology is your friend. There are a million platforms out there that do really beautiful online giving experiences, UX. So Classy is one that I like, but there are like a million others out there. The other piece is, don't skimp on the photography. So like if you look at Charity Water, for example, they just have really invested in beautiful images. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, make those 1,000 words say something beautiful. And There's Canva, free. Like, get some smart young intern to make pretty things for you, right? So we live in a world where we can easily access the talent and the capacity that we need. I was just telling Margie before the call, like, anyone ever use Fiverr? Fiverr is great. So Fiverr, you go online, you spec out a project. I mean, for those of you who have seen my website, I am a single person shop. I have a podcast, I do marketing, I post videos every day on LinkedIn, I have a weekly newsletter. I am literally one person. I have farmed all of this information out. Also, if you look at my website, which you are free to do, it was like $300 from an agency in India. These things do not have to be expensive. They don't have to be full in-house things. You can find labor to do that. I call it global arbitrage. I'll just be fully transparent. My virtual assistant lives in Nigeria. I pay her $400 a month, and she books all of my schedules, my meetings, etc. And I have a firm in the Philippines that does all my social media and my podcast editing and my video editing, and they charge me $600 a month. So again, does not have to be expensive. There are ways to do it. But let's talk about storytelling. So what stories can we tell? I just want to be clear here too. When I say storytelling, and I know that this can be a little triggering for people because I think we've all been on the receiving end of what I call poverty porn, like just bad storytelling where it just feels like, oh, there's this like little child with flies on this, like it's terrible, right? And that emotion that they were trying to make me feel is pity. And it worked, but I don't think it's the long-term key to partners. I think we can tell stories that are impactful, emotional, and respectful of our audience. And so oftentimes what we need to think about is from a narrative perspective, the way that stories work is that there's a challenge of some sort, there's a choice that the person makes, and then there's an outcome that happens, right? It's a very simple storytelling framework. The mistake that I see a lot of nonprofits make is that they make their organization the hero of the story. We're so great, we did this, we did that, blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to be an auxiliary in your hero story. They want to be the hero of their own story. So as you think about communication, decide who the hero is. Is the hero your client? Great, that could be a hero story that you tell. Is the hero the donor? Are you inviting them into a narrative where they get to be the hero? Great. People want to talk about themselves. Now, I know Margie mentioned to me that many of you are doing public policy and advocacy work, and so it might be hard to find a story. But what is policy if not to help people? Like, obviously, it's like you wouldn't be doing it if it didn't help people. So the key is, what's the human story behind the policy, especially because policy feels so wonky, right? And it's really easy to get real wonky real fast. There's no human story there. Like, unless you're like a super policy wonk, and I guess you might get all excited about it. But like, at the end of the day, we're human beings who want human stories. So think about what policy made it possible to help someone. How are their lives different because of this policy, right? Because at the end of the day, as a donor, I want to believe in something greater than myself. And ultimately, I want my life to have meant something. Like, we're all going to die. I don't know if that's news to you, but we're all going to die. And I hope from a very, very long time from now, from all of you. However, when we die, our greatest fear is that our lives have meant nothing. Let people's lives mean something. Let them be a part of something bigger than themselves. Let them leave legacy behind. Okay, that was like my little soapbox. I have a couple key examples of some really nice storytelling, so I'll share these. Amber, can we share this in the chat so folks can pull it up on their computers on their own time?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so now we've brainstormed. We've looked at our donor list. We've brainstormed some goals. We've brainstormed some feelings, some vibes that we want in our communication. We've thought about the kinds of stories that we might want to tell. So now we have to develop our communication plan. Okay, let me tell you something here. Your donor segments should receive a different type of messaging. Now, don't go crazy here, right? But the way that you talk to your major donor, or the way that you talk to the donor who's been giving year after year, is going to be different than the way that you talk to your new prospect who's never heard of you. The more you have been involved with an organization, the more it should feel that they know you, right? Like there's nothing worse than giving year after year and then getting this generic thank you. You're like, I literally have been giving you money for 5 years. Why are you treating me like I'm a stranger, right? And mix your approach. Email, phone, text message, snail mail, whatever. Okay, quick poll here. We're going to talk about generational differences in a second. All right. Okay, so it looks like we got some Gen Z, some millennials, some Gen Xers, now baby boomers. All right. So the key point here is you got to communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with, not the way that you want to be communicated with. So what does that mean? Quickly, you'll get this email to you, so don't feel like you need to take notes. But essentially, let's break it down. Millennials, they're really active and they respond to text and social. They never check their email and they never check their voicemail. So forget about it. They're probably most likely to contribute to work-sponsored initiatives, and they will donate. They'll donate via mobile and they'll watch online videos. But it's like the TikTokification of the world, right? Those are our millennials. I'm sorry, I don't have anything for Gen Zers, so my apologies to the Gen Zer on this call. Gen Xers, they prefer text or voice. They usually check their email and they stay up to date on media feeds, but email is still king or queen. So 31% of them will give a donation because of email. Then we look at our boomers. They give because of direct mail, so literally snail mail. They are probably the most generous of all of the different generations here. And they actually check their voicemail and they check their email and they check social media. So they're generally, they're maybe a bit slower to adopt the technology, but once they're on it, as evidenced by my mother-in-law, who is a boomer, who like forwards me all of the things like it's the 90s. It's like, as if she just discovered gifts. I'm like, thank you. I don't really need this, but it's okay. I love her anyway. But they're the ones who are most likely to donate on a monthly basis. So I would say don't sleep on the boomers here. And then finally, greatest generation. These are late adopters. They don't use social media. They probably don't use text, but they prefer phone calls and direct mails. Okay. So if you can't manage all of email, social media, text, phone calls, snail mail, video, all the things, just pick 2 things and just execute on them well. And in fact, I would say don't sleep on snail mail, because these days I don't get any real mail. It's all bills, right? So how great would it be if I actually got a handwritten note from someone? Like, it would differentiate you in a way that other organizations don't. Let me pause here. Any questions, comments, or concerns so far? I'm a boomer, missed the question. Oh, Marcia, the question is what generation you are in. Okay. No questions so far? Can I get a thumbs up? Are y'all with me? I'm just trying to, all right, cool. Okay, now we understand who our segments are. We understand their preferences. So how do we communicate with them? So number 1, and I just want to make this absolutely clear to everybody, do not ask for another gift until you have told them what you did with their money. This is the number 1 mistake, and this is why our attrition rates are so bad. Because it's like the teenager who only calls you when they need money. Don't be that teenager. You must tell people what you did with their money. So when I think about a communication plan, I think about pebbles and rocks. What are pebbles? What are rocks? Pebbles are updates. Pebbles are social media posts. Pebbles are email updates. Pebbles are your monthly newsletter. Pebbles are phone calls, right? The touch points that are not about asking for money. The rocks are the asks. The rocks are actually asking for money. You need to have a mix of both, because if the only thing your organization ever does is throw out rocks, I'm going to quickly ignore you. That's when I unsubscribe from your news list. That's when I don't take your phone calls, because I'm like, the only time I hear from you is when you need money. However, I can't just do pebbles either, because then I'm never actually asking for money. So here's the ratio. I want you to think about doing 2 major asks every year. So maybe it's end of year and maybe it's like spring, right? Everything else that you're thinking about throughout the year should be pebbles. How am I updating? How am I sharing really impactful stories? How am I giving you a sense of what's coming next? How am I inviting you to things, right? Pebbles and rocks, pebbles and rocks. Okay. Avery, our last poll. Again, no shade. It's all just love here, but let's be real. What's happening? All right. Okay, good. So most of you, 67% of you are consistent throughout the year. That's great. 17% when we're asking for money and 17% radio silent. Okay, let me just say for the record right now, people get very obsessed with things like social media and likes and how many whatever. I think those are vanity metrics. The role of social media is that you want them to take an off-platform action. What does that look like? It means volunteering, it means donating, it means coming to an event, it means signing up for your newsletter. If you have to be obsessed about anything, be obsessed about the size of your email list and be obsessed with the open rate of your email list, because it indicates the quality of your email list. Why do I say that? Because social media is built on borrowed land. So you don't own any of those contacts. Like Facebook could shut you down tomorrow. LinkedIn could shut you down tomorrow. Insta can shut you down tomorrow, right? Your email list is what you own. That is an asset. So what you do is you use social media as like a flower to be like, oh, look at this delicious pollen. Don't you want in? Your email list is actually, that's a terrible analogy. The point is your email list is a gold mine, right? You want to draw them in such that they give you their email address. Now, when they give you their email address, you want to provide value. So the mistake I see people making is like they have license to just shoot out whatever to their email list. Do not give them nonsense. Provide value. What does value look like? It means stories of impact that make them feel good. It means moments of recognition. It means education, right? Maybe there's a think piece like, did you know that there's this problem in the world and this is how we address it, right? So you're always thinking about every communication should be providing value, because my email address is really, really personal, and it's valuable. So if I'm giving you something of value, you need to be giving me something of value. Does that make sense? All right, let's keep going here. So again, this is the funnel. So awareness, social media is really good for awareness. Just like, oh, here's who you are. You exist in the world. That's great. As you move down this funnel, you have different types of interaction. So first is awareness. Oh, you exist in the world. Then if you do your job right, then I'm interested. Oh, okay, I'll start paying attention. Maybe I'll sign up for your email. Maybe I'll follow you on social. There's a difference between interested and engaged, though. I'm sure all of you have people you follow on social, right? But not all of you engage, right? So engagement means they actually do stuff. They're not just passive receivers of your communication. They're actually opening your emails. They're sharing, they're commenting, they're voting on things. They come to events, etc. And then committed, they donate money. Now, commitment can look like a bunch of different things. It could mean donations. It could mean volunteer. It could mean showing up for events. It could mean introducing you to people in their network, right? So I encourage you to think of commitment as more than just a dollar amount. But another fun pyramid. The higher up someone is in and this is how you think about triaging your donor database. How can I say this without being obnoxious? I'm just going to be obnoxious. The more money you give, the more I pay attention to you. Frankly, right? So when I look at a major donor who is giving a significant amount to our organization, they don't get an email. They don't get a letter. In fact, they get a personal solicitation. And then we go down the list, right? So the more valuable you are to me as an organization, the more you get my personal touch. this is like the universe of potential donors. That's where you use your social, that's where you do things like, you know, PR, press releases, that's where you have like, if you're interviewed on the news, things like that. That's the widest part of your funnel. So far, so good. Is this making sense?
Where would you put monthly sustainers?
Monthly sustainers, I would put in renewed gift. Right? Again, like the more you give, the more I'm paying attention to you. Okay, couple of different ways I want you to think about this. So major donors is the most personalized. Face-to-face solicitation increases your likelihood by 70%. So I know there's a very strong impulse to be like, I'll just email ask. You can if you want to know. So as much as possible, especially with your major donors, you should try to get that face time. So you should in-person solicitations, phone calls, handwritten notes. Don't sleep on the handwritten notes. I've built my whole career on handwritten notes. Video thank yous. Your recurring annual donors. You can do a personalized ask of 10% upgrade. But again, do not ask them for money until you've told them what you did with their last gift. That you can do a personal solicitation. Now, again, the more you know your donors, the better. So there are some people who are not email people. There are some people who are not text people. Some people are like, only text me. Again, treat people the way they want to be treated. Lapsed donors. Send it, we miss you communication, right? And the thing that I want to share with you is Tribe Charities, the group that I mentioned before. They do monthly donors. They have a, I'm not even kidding you, 98% month over month retention rate. It is bananas. How do they do it? First of all, they tell really good stories. So they have a whole media person who all she does is crank out really amazing heartfelt stories. But the other thing that they do is they know their data. So what does that look like? Every single person who donates to them gets a handwritten note. Every single person whose credit card fails that week, on a weekly basis, they get a personal phone call. Every single person who downgrades their gift gets a personal note. Every single person who stops giving gets a personal note. It is labor intensive. There are no shortcuts, but they also have a 98% retention rate. So you do the math on that one. It does not take that much time to write a nice little note. And this is why board members can be very handy. Okay, new donors. Again, these are people who do not know you, but the goal here is to build a relationship of trust. So that, like, who are these new donors, you might ask? These are your newsletter subscribers. These are your volunteers. These are your friends and family. You can use email solicitation, text messaging, and social media. Now, the one caveat I will say here is if a new donor comes in or a new prospect comes in and it's, say, a friend of a board member, and this person is like, hey, this is a major gift potential, then you cultivate them as a major donor, not just an average run-of-the-mill donor. So far, so good? So let's talk about a warm-up sequence. What does that look like? In a perfect ideal world, and I know that we don't live in an ideal world, I want you to think about 3 pieces of communication to warm up your audience. So these are your 3 pebbles before your rock. Again, the communication should invite your donor into a story where your client or they as a donor are the hero of the story, not your nonprofit. When your nonprofit is the hero of the story, that's the same thing as going on a date and being like, I am so great. Let me tell you about all the things that are great about me. You know where I went to school. This is how much money I make. I'm really cute. Good luck getting a second date, right? Don't be that person. And then think about your different marketing assets. Is it around social media, email, website, snail mail, etc. The other thing is, here's the #1 biggest sin. Please do not be boring. It is so easy to ignore boring. I mean, especially nowadays, we have a million things coming at us all of the time. Think about how you can differentiate and how you can use your brand. Boring is boring. Like, boring is beige. Like, I've never walked into a room and I said, wow, you know what's really great? This beige color. This is a really remarkable beige. I would rather that you risk offending someone than to be boring. Good marketing attracts, great marketing repels. Dare to be different. Dare to claim an edge. All right, I see there's a question.
It's a comment.
Jennifer, say more.
So last year in New Jersey, we had the entire legislature, we had a gubernatorial election last year, and our entire legislature, both houses, was up for re-election. So basically, they signed a budget in July and did nothing until after the election. So we had this humongous lame duck session. And so my marketing, or our comms director and I, who should never be alone in a room together because we come up with terrible ideas together that are hysterically funny. Knowing that our brand is built on nerdiness, sincerity, and a high level of snark, came up with a online donor event that we called What the Duck.
I love it.
And I got to write like 4 or 5 emails promoting this event, and make any donation at any level and you get an invitation. Every single sentence in all of the emails had at least one duck pun or poultry pun. Our interim director looked at me at some point. He's like, I thought at some point you were going to get serious with these. I'm like, no. We take our work seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously.
I love it. And what was your engagement with that? Sorry.
Well, our big problem when we drive donation-based emails is we do tend to get unsubscribes with those. That number fell off significantly. We attracted a bunch of new donors. I don't remember the exact engagement rates at this point. Because there was at least one person who reached out to our comms director, who was a friend of his. He's like, these are too much fun to read. You guys are on Hinge. I'm going to give you some money because I need to come.
I love it. And Jennifer, would you mind sharing that with the rest of us, just to give us a sense of some insight?
Let me see if I can find some of the emails. Hang on.
Yeah, that would be really fun. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Like humor is a really effective tool, right? And here's the other thing is that people also get really obsessed with unsubscribes. Do not obsess about unsubscribes. Just like don't even look at it if it's going to stress you out, because the thing is, if they're unsubscribing to you, they were never going to donate to you in the first place. It like clear the herd, it's fine. Now, if you get a huge number of unsubscribes, or over a couple of different sends, you might want to look at your communications. Like you might be doing something to push people away, but for the most part, like unsubscribes are not something that you should obsess about. Okay,
Jennifer definitely took your advice, Rhea, and she was not boring. They were not boring with those emails.
Literally the number one sin: do not be boring.
Yeah.
Risk being offensive over being boring. Okay, here's the ask. So when you send out your ask, so that could be via email, snail mail, social, whatever, don't be afraid to do multiple asks because people will often forget. However, once people give, do not keep asking them because you have just demonstrated that you don't know me. You have violated caring trust. So that's where you really want to make sure that your data is clean so that you're not sending solicitation to people who already gave. A couple places that you can do the ask is the beginning of the campaign. So let's say early November, early December, then mid-campaign, update mid-December, and then last call. So remember, those last 3 days of the year, you want to be doing follow-ups. And that follow-up could look like phone calls. It could look like texts. It could look like emails. I would mix it up because sometimes, especially with email, it can go into spam. Like I've had that happen a million times, right? So just think about like, what are different ways that we can access people to make sure that they really don't mean to give and just forgot. Again, touch points are effective, follow-ups are effective, and think about, and there are a ton of different things that you could use out there. Like there are apps that text on your behalf. Depending on what your CRM is, you can use that. You can do phone calls, you can just drop in voice messages. I'm sure you can talk to a smart Gen Zer and talk and ask about all the different ways that we can get in touch with people. Personal emails, again, always gold. If you have a matching gift, that can also stimulate giving. So if you have a board member or a donor who's willing to put up like let's say I'm going to match all gifts up to a certain amount, that can also be really appealing to people. Let me pause here. I see the question.
Rhea, can you give an example of a personal touch? Is a question in the chat.
Yes. So personal touch point might be, hey, I saw that Margie hasn't given yet. Let me just pick up. You know what this is? Millennials, Gen Z. Do you know what this is? It does more than just text and get on TikTok. Hey, Margie, Rhea here. Just wanted to
Hi, Rhea.
remind you that we are doing our end of year campaign and would love if you could see your way to joining us this year.
Oh, thank God you called me. I meant to do it and I completely forgot. Rhea, thank you so
Let
much.
me send you an email with the link. Would love to see your support this year. Thanks so much.
You got it.
Happy New
Thanks.
Year.
Happy
But
New Year to you too. Bye.
do not be afraid to use the phone. Or here's the thing. My new favorite thing, y'all, is this thing called Punk Post. I'll put it in the chat. You pay an artist to create a beautiful handwritten card that gets sent to people for like $7. It is the best thing in the world. Literally nobody who's ever gotten a Punk Post has not been totally bowled over by the beauty of it. Okay. Shirley, does that help? Also, personal emails. I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't look super generic. I'm going to say, hey, Kalina, what color is your hair this week? Anyway, you probably got this. Just wondered if you'd be interested in joining our campaign this year. Would love your support. This would allow us to do X, Y, and Z. Hope you and your family are doing well. Here's the link. Cheers. Right? Does not have to be complicated, but like show that you know me.
Jennifer told me that she sent me a couple of her duck stuff. So I will make sure that you all get it as well, that you can see it.
I
Maybe
love
not
it.
this
What
second,
the
but
duck
after
is
this.
so funny.
And Rhea, would you say that a personal thing is something, if you know that a donor's child broke her leg, that you check in later on, like that kind of personal?
Yeah. Let me just tell a little story. This is in my book, but many years ago, my husband took me to 11 Madison Park, which is like a fancy restaurant in New York for my birthday. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you what I ate. I'm sure it was delicious, right? The thing I remember is when I sat down on the menu, they had printed out a menu that said, Happy Birthday, Rhea, on the top. Now, it didn't cost them anything to do that, but I remembered it because it was a nice touch. It just made me feel special, right? I am now always going to go to 11 Madison Park because I have the feeling of the memory of feeling special. So how are we going to make our donors just feel like human beings, feel like they matter to us, feel like we understand that they are people with lives and kids that break their leg? How do we help them to see that we care about them as people, not just as walking checkbooks, right? At the end of the day, we all just want to be part of something. Okay. Now, a couple questions I want you to consider when you think about your stewardship. What is your workflow? So if I donate to you, say I donate online, or I send in a check, or I donate via, I guess, whatever, like I donate stock, like think about all the different ways in which money comes to you. Think about then what happens. What is the workflow? Does a tax receipt get emailed? Do you text message a thank you note? Do you handwrite? Do you phone call? Do you update 3 months? Do you invite them to special events? Do you offer them swag? I don't care what sequence of events it is, just literally write down this is what happens after a donation happens, so everybody on your team knows this is what happens. Because if you don't have a process, if it's super random, the donor experience then becomes super random, right? You want as much as possible to systematize your stewardship. And let me also just say this, the thank you cannot just be, oh, the email tax receipt. That is terrible. So take the time to actually make people feel that they matter. In fact, I'll tell like one silly example. I donated to my high school the biggest gift I've ever given to them last year. They just sent me a letter for this year asking for more money, and I don't know what they did. They obviously did not look at the data. They asked me for less money than I donated last year. I was like,
Whoa.
okay, don't know what's happening here. But that makes you feel like, oh, well, clearly, like, you didn't know that I gave my best gift, right? So that sucked. All right, question in the chat. How do you make your donors feel appreciated? What's the thing, what's that special something that you do to make them feel appreciated? Handwritten thank yous. Yes, Kalina, I love the handwritten thank yous. You call them, Margie, beautiful. And Kalina, when you do your handwritten thank yous, do you also put something personal in there, or is it a standard for all of them?
No, I try to do as personal as I can. And if I don't know them, then I'll ask one of our organizers, like, hey, what's something that they can do? But like one of our donors said, like, this is how we decided to use our stimulus check. And so like I reiterated back that I had like read their note and said, like, thank you so much for choosing us to like use your stimulus check on, like,
Yes.
you know, that kind of thing. So I try as much as possible to be personal.
Yes. Beautiful. That's really good. And this is like the bid for why you keep your database up to date, right? Those notes should be there. Like, I think about when I call Apple, like, and they pull up my account and they're like, oh, I see that you bought this iPhone in 2018. I'm like, yes, I did. Like, I see that you called us back in 2018 because of an issue. Like, yes, I did. Right? Like, just the feeling of being known is really important. Okay, here's some hot tips for you. Handwrite addresses and return name on the snail mail. So if you are sending physical mail, please, to the extent that you can, do not print the labels. And I know you're gonna be like, oh, it takes so much. Most of you only have less than 500 donors. I had like 1,000 person email list. I took a stack of envelopes home, I put on Netflix, and I just wrote. So think about doing that, because I'm much more likely to open a letter that is handwritten than I am a random label. Consider lumpy mail. Human beings are curious. If you put something in the envelope that's kind of lumpy, I'm going to open it because I just want to know what's in it. Also, this is the advantage of if you send mail to, say, you know, a super busy executive, by necessity, the lumpy mail is on top because you can't stack on top of lumpy mail. Just like some fun strategies. Use video messages. There are a ton of apps out there that you can use video message and personalize it. Personalize, personalize, personalize. So, Kalina, you said best. As much as you can, get to know the person that you're writing to and put something personal in. And again, to Jennifer's point, don't be afraid to show some personality. Okay, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to give you all a template that hopefully will make your lives better. What I'm going to do is give you this template. I'll give you some time to look at it. I'm going to put you in, well, actually, how many people do we have on the call? 10. I'll put you in 2 small groups. What I would love for you to answer, what is one thing that you'll commit to right after this call? So I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to put you all in rooms, talk amongst yourselves, but just tell each other one thing that you're committing to after this call. Hello, friends. Welcome back. I would love to ask your group to just report back. What did y'all talk about? Let's go with the Kalina Kendall group first.
So we were talking about different ways to personalize and how to learn more about the donors. And so Rhea suggested a donor survey, which we both thought was a really great way to do it. And I was saying that my company used to think of like our email, like anyone who'd opted into an email as who we should send our year-end appeal to. and we would get like 60 donations back from sending out 12,000 letters. And then, so I cut it down to like just who'd given in the last 2 years, and we got like a much better response. And it was a lot less work as well. So, and we also like personalized it based on their giving. So like if you had given, and we like bumped it up to the next level. So that was much more successful for our company than like just like email or, you know, like send it to everyone. So I think like it wasn't at like personalized in terms of like, hey Tom, I hope your cat is okay, but like it was more personal in that like we actually knew their donor history.
Yep.
So that seemed to work better. But yeah, Kendall and I are both now very intrigued by this donor survey idea, and so we're gonna both try to work on that with our companies.
So a couple of things there that you said, Kalina, that I think is really important. So number one, when you're collecting emails, it's very easy on a form to also just have people check out like, what do you want to hear about, right? I just want news. I'd be willing to be on the donor list, like whatever. We call it permission-based marketing. Oh, like, tell me what it is you want to hear from us about. And doesn't even have to be specific. Like I would be interested in, you know, being a donor, but it could be like, I want to hear about programs, or I want to hear about updates. I want, you know, whatever. I actually don't hate the idea of soliciting your whole list unless the list specifically says do not solicit. So again, I don't hate that idea, but you will get some unsubscribes, which is okay. They were probably never going to give to you anyway. Now, let's talk about a donor survey. So a lot of times as nonprofits, we get into this space of like, oh, I don't want to bother people, right? But the truth is like, you don't ask, you don't get. So I was just explaining to Kendall and Kalina, like I can't buy something online without a survey popping up in my face, right? Like Gap sends me like a bajillion surveys, like please stop asking me. I can ignore it. But obviously from a math perspective, like to math, like some number of people do actually answer the survey. When you're doing the survey, let me back up for a second. I think that we have to recognize that we are in a world in which people self-cultivate and self-solicit. By the time I get to a solicit, like by the time I get to I'm donating money to you, it's usually because I've already like looked at your website, looked at your social media, you've done the research, maybe looked at your 990. So like I've already self-solicited here. What that means then is I need to create marketing that gets me to the table to the point that I actually want to do deeper research. The only way that you're going to do that is by the survey. So the survey should look at both demographic and psychographic information. So demographic, like who are you? What's your age? Like, you know, level of, you know, education, et cetera. So why are you on our email list? Like what is interesting to you about what we do? And then here's the most important question. I would be interested in talking about a donation to your organization. Yes, no. Can we contact you? Right? People will tell you if they want to donate to you or not. Or the question is, I am in a position to make a donation to your organization. Yes, no. All of a sudden, you pay attention to those people. So generally, on the low end, you get a very low response rate, but of the people who are responding, those are your super fans. Like those are the people that you need to be paying attention to. So don't make the donor survey super onerous. Like make it 10 questions maximum. Make it really quick, but allow them the possibility of telling you that they want to be deeper engaged, telling you that they'd be interested in donating. Does that make sense? If you want more on this, there's a book called Engagement Fundraising. I definitely recommend it. Here, I'll send you all the link. Okay, our second group. What did you all talk about?
I said that, so a little background of me. I've started doing a little bit more of the like financing here in my organization. So I handle a lot of the memberships and donations, and I don't actually think to send like a thank you or anything, mostly because I am new here, not super new. I've been here for over a year, but like a lot of the members that we have been here for years. So they've been donating for the last 40, 30, 20 years. So it's like, there's no process, you know? But every once in a while, our population is seniors. So every once in a while, I would like handwrite something just because it's more convenient and it's quicker. But I never thought to like say thank you, even if you do it $10 every month for the last 10 years. Like it just doesn't pop in my head to send a thank you. My brain is like, put it in the system, put it in QuickBooks, put it in, make sure that it's listed somewhere. So I never think like, it was interesting. And I loved your part on communicating and what type of communication you do. So I'm a millennial, I'm 26. So I agree with what you said. I definitely do not listen to any voicemails wholeheartedly. I look at them and delete them. I don't care who it's from. I check my email because I'm a professional, but if it's not important, like realistically, if it's not work or like somebody else, delete it, archive, whatever you want to say. But our population is, I would say maybe like 50-50 is like really into emails, but a lot of them I'll send an email and then they'll call me. Tell me about this. What is this? Why, what are you talking about? What's the date? Even though it's right there, all the information that they're asking me is right there, but they want to talk to me about it. So I never thought about stuff like that.
Yeah. And so
A lot of takeaways.
what a great opportunity. When they call you, make a note in the CRM and be like, this person calls. So next time we send out a communication, I'm not going to send an email. I'm going to call them.
Call them. Yep.
Right. And it's not about how you want to be communicated with, it's how they want to be communicated with. Also, it's incredible that you have donors that have been with you that long. I think there's an opportunity here to create like a special society. Like send them like a little certificate. You are a 20-year donor to us and we appreciate that. Welcome to our silver society, whatever. Like just make people feel special.
Lots of takeaways.
Because it's like over the lifetime, if you give me $10 a month for 20 freaking years, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Look what Jennifer put in, recognition event.
Recognition.
I was thinking about that. We have a convention next month, which is something I think they do every like 2 years, but given COVID, it just hasn't happened because we elect like the board and everything. And I was thinking that would be like a really cool thing to do, of like recognizing the like, I don't know, a part of me is like, I want to recognize the top donors, but I also don't want to be like, you know, the people who've donated $100 in the 20 years they've been here. They don't want to be like, oh, you know, what about me? You don't care about my dollars. You know, I don't want to offend people.
Yeah, but make it about longevity then. Like, and you can do something like get little pins for people. Like people love pins. I don't know why, but like a little pin, like, hey, you're in our platinum society because you've been a donor for 20 years, or there's a silver society if it's 10 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not even necessarily about the amount, because I think people get like, they have some feelings about that. It's about your loyalty to it. Like think about like loyalty cards, right? Or like loyalty credit cards. Like you get points for like my Starbucks card, right? Like I get little stars and it keeps me coming back. I'm like, what? I want a star. And then like after I spend like $100, I get a free coffee, which like honestly like is ridiculous and like it costs them nothing, but like it's a psychological thing of like, yes, I got a free thing. A star. Like we're all freaking star oriented. So
I'm gonna tell my boss about this.
Yeah. So just think about like, what are the ways that you can make people, especially like a 20-year donor. I'm like, you should get a red carpet rollout. Like, come on. You can like Hall of Fame event. I don't know, whatever. Like make people feel special. Jennifer, did you have something?
They're great examples of what you're saying, Rhea, in here, and Shayla to look at, that Jennifer wrote and Ambar wrote. There's so many ways to do this. It's great.
Honorable call from the podium. I love that.
Literally like have everybody figure out your stacks of years, like everyone is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 more. And then literally just have those people stand up if they're there and read all the names. It takes a while, but it makes people happy.
It makes me, at the end of the day, we just want to feel special. Like that's it, people. That's a takeaway. How are we going to make people feel special? Especially doing it for 20 years. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and when I've done things like that, I've also seen an increase in their donation, and they're like, "Oh my God, I feel so special. Let me bring in my 3 friends to match my gift," and it's like, great.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, if you get excited about something, the thing you want to do is tell all your friends, right? I saw this new Netflix show. It's so funny. I'm going to make sure all my friends know about it. I got this new t-shirt. It's so great. I'm going to tell all my friends about it, right? I give to this nonprofit. They made me feel so good. I'm going to tell all my friends about it. It costs you nothing and it means everything. Think about like the happy birthday Rhea on the menu. It cost them nothing. I am now like forever going to be in 11 Madison Park.
Right.
Okay, let me pause there. Any questions? Because I know we have to have some time for a survey. A couple of like,
And while you're pausing, you're collecting your thoughts, Rhea, I want to thank you so much for this great presentation, and you covered the waterfront really, really good. And I want to hear what everybody else has to say, but I just want to get that in. Thank you so much. Thank you to Avery and
you.
Amar for helping it go smoothly, the polls and the breakouts. So
Yes.
good. I'll do the evaluation in a minute.
Kudos to both of you. If you want more of this, if you're not sick of my voice yet, I do have a podcast called Nonprofit Lowdown. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my main platform. I have a free newsletter every week at rheawong.com full of inspiration and cute dog pictures. So that's the value for value. Give me your email and I'll give you stuff. And of course I have my book, Get That Money Honey, which is I think it's a good read.
I want to remind you all also that on November 1st, we're doing the third in the series on foundation fundraising with another guest speaker from Hidden Leaf Foundation and with Michael Ramali as my co-presenter. And it'll dovetail nicely with this type of fundraising. Lots of things here. Foundation program officers like to feel special too. They like to know that you're doing good work and they like feeling special. So
Everyone
yeah,
wants
any other parting words?
Yeah. Let people be the heroes of their story.
Yeah.
Let people be the star of their own movies. Like we already are. So just affirm for me that I'm the star of my own movie. So thank you, Margie and Avery and Ambar and all the rest of you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I hope we stay connected. And I know we have a survey that we want to ask you all about. So good luck. Happy fundraising.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was great.
Please take
Thank you.
some time to
Wonderful.
fill out the survey really quickly now so I don't bombard you with emails about the evaluation later. So thank you, thank you. And just like Margie said, another training that's coming up, 90-minute webinars on November 17th. And that's in the evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific time for your board members. So if you want your board members to engage in fundraising, recruit them, sign them up, and you're welcome to join with them, but it will be catered to board members. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you need the registration link, I'll chat it to you.
Great, excellent. I'm so glad to see a lot of your faces. Well, to see you a lot often, Marcia. No just to you, but to see people coming back to things is great. It's so good. Sheila, I want you to tell us in a few months how it went. What recognition way did you do it? Opportunity did you take? That would be good. I don't like pins because I don't like holes in my clothing, but I got one once that had a magnet on the other side that kept it closed. That was great.
Well, the thing I saw that Tribe Charity says is it prints little coins for people. So like if you've been given for 10 years, you get like a little coin that's like 10 year on it.
Oh, nice.
I love stuff.
I've always loved stickers for whatever reason.
I like
love
stickers.
stickers. On my computer, on my mirror, on my
Badges,
notebook.
people love badges.
What?
Badges, you know, like those
Matches. I was like, fire? What?
Oh, I mean, Girl Scout style, like the little like iron-on badges. I don't know. People love those things.
Yeah. Marcia, nice to see you.
Hi, Marcia. I can also stick around if folks have questions. I don't need to go exactly at 4, so happy to answer any outstanding questions. Are you all going to run at end of your campaign?
Yeah.
We are, yeah. We're actually gearing up for it now.
Awesome.
Right.
And I think we also will send out the PDF copy of the presentation. Is that right, Amber?
Yes.
Yes, so you'll receive an email from me next week with a recording of the session, and then Rhea will be CC'd on that email. She will send you all of the links or the templates, anything that she wants to send you there, along with the PDF of the presentation.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Should we get everybody to fill out the form, Ambar? The eval?
2 out of 5
They've
completed.
been doing that. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I had started on it, but I've lost it. I answered the first question and I didn't get, and I've lost it.
Oh, I think that's an Avery question. That is a
Yeah.
tough. It's above my pay
Oh, when
grade.
it disappears, I'm not sure where it goes. That is a weird one.
Oh,
Maybe we can email it to her afterwards.
I
if
can
we
email
can't
you
get her.
the
Yeah.
evaluation, Marsha.
Thanks, Marcia, for alerting us for this.
Yeah, I
All
didn't
right, bye, Brendo.
get the eval either, so I can fill it out after. If you email it out, I'll definitely fill it out.
Perfect. Will do.
Great.
Thank
I'm glad to
you.
know that.
right,
We'll work on why you didn't get it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. This was fantastic and very helpful. So I appreciate
Thank
all
you,
of you.
Rhea. You were great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the tip on the hair dye.
Yeah, if you try it, let me know. Yeah, you can do so many fun colors.
Awesome. I
You
know.
can match them with your glasses, Rhea.
I know.
I
it's
would
just
love
like-
that.
Like matchy match. It'd be so great, but it was like so
Yeah.
thing. But now I
They say just the pink tips to go with the glasses.
Ah, yes.
You could do that.
And do
Yeah,
you
that's
ever-
cool. And then when you
ever
put it
watch
in your
Randy
bun,
Rainbow?
it's just a pink bun.
yeah. I love that.
Pink bun. Whoa, nice.
So
Randy Rainbow has glasses like you. You should look him up. He's the best.
Oh my gosh, Randy Rainbow is my absolute favorite.
I
Isn't he the
love-
best?
He's
When I saw your logo, that's who I thought of too.
Right. But she'd have to have little diamonds on her
Great.
glasses.
Yeah.
Let's talk about glasses.
Yeah.
You guys can be pink glasses pals.
Totally
He's in
do.
New York too, so
I know.
Yeah.
I watch his stuff. I think he's
So
hilarious.
good. Bye, everybody.
okay.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Good luck.
Care. Bye.
Keep me posted.
Support the fundraise.